have taken you from the Imperial City's prison, first by carriage and now by boat, to the east, to Morrowind. Fear not, for I am watchful. You have been chosen.
How does 200 hours of gameplay strike you? I'm Greg Kasavin, and I'm here to take you on a video tour through The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind from Bethesda Softworks. This is a game that could keep you busy for a long, long time. Morrowind is the latest installment of Bethesda's long-running Elder Scrolls series, but you don't really need any previous experience with those games to be able to jump right into Morrowind. It does a pretty good job of kind of holding your hand through the initial portion of the game, and then introducing you to this wide, big, huge, sweeping world that the game contains. It basically sets you loose on this island province of Morrowind, and pretty much tells you that you could go wherever you go and do anything in any order. Really, this is a role-playing epic in the purest sense. Though the game is played from a first-person perspective, and though you don't have any kind of characters in your party following you around, you just go at it alone, this is still just epic in the purest sense of the word. It's just big, and there's a lot to do and a lot to see. The game's got some very impressive graphics, particularly the graphics seen in the scenery. It looks great either on a high-end PC or on the Xbox. The two versions of the game are essentially identical, and really Morrowind isn't like what you'd see typically from a console RPG. It's not a linear game by any means. It's a game where you really create your character's persona in your mind and act it out within the game. This is role-playing also in its purest sense. The game begins when you're released from captivity and ordered to complete a highly secret assignment in the name of the Emperor. The game nicely incorporates character creation right into the opening sequence. As you're asked a series of questions, you basically then choose your character's race from a wide variety of different types of races. There are kind of fantastical things like dragon people and cat people to go with a number of more standard-looking types of characters. You could also choose a character class at this point, but one of the coolest things about Morrowind is that you could create your very own class just by assigning a series of primary and secondary skills and basically areas of concentration for your character. Your character's skills determine what he or she is going to be good at and going to be proficient at. In fact, you level up just by improving in your primary and secondary skills. These range from combat skills like skill with swords and axes and blocking to sneaking skills, things like sneaking around and disarming traps and picking locks and basically convincing people, persuasion tactics, things like that, to magic skills, different schools of magic, destruction and restoration, things like that. With all the options available, it's fun to be able to develop your very own character class that either focuses on magic or stealth or combat or any combination of those. Once you've created your persona, it's not long before you realize that the world of Morrowind is very detailed, just as it is big. You'll see some incredible levels of detail in this game. You'll be able to do things like go into bookstores and read every single book on the shelf, or talk to everyone in town, go into everyone's house. They don't seem to mind if you just kind of barge right in. You can choose to be good or evil. You could elect to, help people right their wrongs and go on honorable types of assignments. You can join a number of honorable guilds. You could also act out of evil if you want, and you might have to pay the consequences, but you could do things like mug people in the street and take their stuff, or taunt people, or try to bribe officials, things like that. Morrowind tries to let you do pretty much everything, and even though some of the skills aren't as fully developed as others, the implementation of them isn't terribly complex in the context of the game. It's still pretty amazing that there's just so much stuff in this game, so many places to go and characters to meet, things to see, and really just the overall experience of playing Morrowind as a result of all this stuff that's in the game is quite unlike that offered by any other game. Just exploring the world of the game has to be one of the best aspects of Morrowind, just one of the most enjoyable aspects. There's so many different types of places to see. You'll go into these odd towns, all made out of what seem to be these giant seashells, and they'll be kind of blasted by sandstorms, and you'll see the characters holding their arms up to their faces to keep the sand out of their eyes, things like that. You'll go into ancestral tombs and explore, kind of the wide open plains, and you'll be spending hours and hours just walking through these environments, looking into every nook and cranny, and only then will you realize that you've just kind of scratched the surface of this gigantic world. You'll look at the world map and realize that you've barely explored any of it. There's just so much more for you to see. And as if 200 hours of gameplay weren't enough, the PC version of Morrowind also comes with a tool set where you can try to create your own entire new quests and areas of the world, things like that. You could also download those created by other users and plug in new both official and player-created attachments into the game, like for new types of armor and new weapons and new quests and areas and things like that. So for a single-player-only game, Morrowind really offers about as much value as you could possibly imagine. Even though Morrowind is a really open-ended game, one aspect of gameplay that can't really be avoided is combat. Invariably, you're going to get into some fights, so whether with monsters or with people who would seek to do you in. The game's combat system is actually pretty simple. You can either use melee weapons, there's some ranged weapons, and there are also some magic. It's pretty hack and slash. You kind of hold down the action button until you draw your weapon and can execute one of 3 different types of slashes, at least with short-ranged weapons, and you kind of slug it out until the guy in front of you dies or you do. A lot depends on your character's proficiency with his weapons, and this isn't really an action-oriented combat system. Morrowind obviously takes place in a sort of medieval fantasy world. This isn't, science fiction or anything like that, so how do you get around in this gigantic world? Well, truth be told, there is a lot of legwork in Morrowind. You'll even do some swimming and things like that, but fortunately there are ways of expediting travel. Particularly, there are these giant flea-like creatures called silt striders, which are basically sort of taxi cabs in the world of Morrowind. You just pay the keeper of the silt strider a small fee, and he'll basically magically whisk you away to another town or something like that, so you can cross vast reaches of the world very quickly. But of course, to get to some of the more remote locations, you'll have to figure out a way to get there on your own. But of course, getting there is half the fun in this game, again, because there's so much detail in the world. This game has more varieties of plants and mushrooms than most other games have varieties of weapons. I mean, you could go out and gather herbs for magic users and go on all kinds of rather obscure quests that really bring to light just the amount of stuff that there is to see and do in this game. Morrowind is for the patient. You need a lot of dedication to get all the way through this game. The journal system in the game can make it pretty hard to keep track of the literally dozens of quests that you might have pending at any given moment, or all the ones that you've accomplished. So really you need to methodically play through this game, explore all the regions, and basically just go at a leisurely pace, because there's no real sense of urgency. You're just exploring this great big world and trying to uncover the mysteries and the perils that have befallen it. There's kind of a strange plague that's swept over the land, and it turns out that you're going to try to figure out what exactly is going on with that. And of course, there's much more than meets the eye to your character. You're not just a simple prisoner, and you'll find all that out in the game's main storyline. Thanks for joining us for this video tour of Morrowind. Needless to say, you're not going to see a whole ton of the game in just 10 or 15 minutes, but I hope I've given you a glimpse of all that there is to see in this great big game.